Okay, good morning all. Let's start with the second unit, transform. So we are going to discuss two types of transforms here, Fourier transform and Z transform. Right? The basics of Fourier transform you have discussed in M2, that is a Fourier series, which is related to Fourier series. So what the Fourier series does? Fourier series transforms, or it represents a periodic function actually. Or we find the Fourier series expansion representation of only periodic functions, which satisfying other in addition a few more conditions. Can somebody tell me what those conditions are? What is the criteria to find the Fourier series representation? Yes. Aditya Joshi, unmute your mic, please. Aditya. Hello. Hello. Shreyas Dixit, unmute your mic. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, you're audible.
So why the people are not replying then? Shreyas, unmute your mic, please. Shreyas Dixit. Okay, Shreyas Kapre. Shreyas Gunja. We'll discuss it later. This is the time for lecture. Okay. First of all, unmute your mic, Shreyas Gunja.
Yes, sir.
Are you getting my question? What is the criteria to find the Fourier series representation?
I don't know, sir.
You don't know. Okay. Have you discussed it in M2? Fourier series
Yes, sir.
representation. Okay, fine.
Yes.
All right. Prathamesh, unmute your mic, please. Prathamesh Pisale.
Yes, sir.
What is the criteria? What is the condition to find the Fourier series representation?
Sir, harmonic analysis.
Harmonic analysis. That is a type of Fourier series actually. That is not a criteria.
Okay. Sorry, sir. I do.
Okay. Kiran. Kiran Thorat. Unmute your mic, please. Hello, Kiran. Kiran Thorat. Are you there? Okay, Gayatri. Gayatri Kharche.
Yes, sir.
What are the conditions to find the Fourier series representation? This is the prerequisite required for the Fourier transform.
It should be like integrable, as in.
Right. Integrable.
Yeah, sir.
And
That's it.
only integrable. Shouldn't
Yes,
it be
sir.
continuous? What about the continuity? Or can we find the Fourier series representation of discontinuous function also? If yes, then what is the criteria on that discontinuity?
Sir, I don't know.
Okay. Pratik Shirsagar. Pratik.
Yes, sir.
Do you know the condition to find the Fourier series representation?
Sir, the function must be of a single value. Then it must the number the function must be discontinuous.
Discontinuous. Okay.
Yeah.
It must be actually continuous also, but if it is discontinuous, those points of discontinuity must be finite.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It is not discontinuous. If it is discontinuous, the points of discontinuity are finite.
Finite. Yes, sir.
Okay, function must be integrable. These conditions
The
are called
function must be
integrable also, right?
yes, sir.
Integrable and continuously differentiable. Anyways, these conditions are called Dirichlet conditions. Dirichlet conditions. If the function satisfy the Dirichlet condition and if it is periodic, then we can have its Fourier series representation. Right? So we'll continue with this, the Fourier transform actually. First of all, Fourier series is used to represent a periodic function by a discrete sum of complex exponentials. While the Fourier transform is used to represent a general non-periodic function. So there is no condition on Fourier transform, right? The condition on Fourier's to find the Fourier series representation, the function must be periodic first of all, and it should have to satisfy the Dirichlet condition. But that is not the condition for finding the Fourier transform. Okay, is then used to represent a general non-periodic function by a continuous representation or continuous superposition of integral of complex exponentials. This is a Fourier series representation of a function, in fact, periodic functions, which is defined in terms in the interval minus infinity to infinity. Isn't it? So fx is equal to a naught by 2 plus infinite summation from 1 to infinity an cos n pi x by L plus bn sin n pi x by L, right? So this is a Fourier series representation for an arbitrary function. Arbitrary function means whose period is defined in arbitrary interval minus L to L or 0 to 2L with the period 2L, right? Where a naught, an and bn are called Fourier coefficients, which are defined with these formulas. A naught is 1 by L minus L to L fx dx. An is 1 by L minus L to L fx cos of n pi x dx and pi x upon L dx and bn. All right. So based on the nature of function, whether function is even or odd, we have defined the two types of Fourier series, that is sine series and cosine series, right? And if the interval in which the function is defined is half interval, then the Fourier series representations obtained in that half interval are called half range Fourier sine and half range Fourier cosine expansions, right? So with the help of substitution of these three integrals a naught, an and bn into this formula, into the formula of Fourier series representation, we get a complex form of Fourier series representation by writing the cos and sine function in terms of exponential. As we know, cos can be written in terms of exponential by Euler's formula, isn't it? We know the Euler's formula, e raised to I theta is kya hota hai? E raised to I theta is cos theta plus I sin theta, right? So e raised to I theta in terms of cos and sine is called an Euler's formula. So by substitution of cos and sine in terms of exponential inverse, it's called the exponential form of this f of x. That is cos. What is the formula for sine theta in terms of exponential? Yes, Sine theta, we can write it as a e raised to I theta minus e raised to minus I theta upon 2i, right? And cos theta, we can write it as a cos e raised to I theta plus e raised to I theta upon 2, right? So by substitution of those representations of cos and sine in terms of exponential, we'll get exponential form. And since e raised to I theta is nothing but a complex number, that is called a complex exponential form of this f of x. And when we generalize it like this is a complex exponential form of Fourier series. Fx is equal to summation of, by combining all these summations, these integrals, so we get a complex exponential form from minus infinity to infinity, where Cn is a integral 1 upon 2l from minus L to L f of u e raised to minus I n pi u upon L du. Now this is everything in terms of arbitrary interval. There is no interval specified that is minus pi to pi or 0 to 2 pi, isn't it? This is arbitrary interval where L can be anything. But the function must be periodic here. And we are going to extend the notion of this Fourier series to the Fourier transform by extending this integration like this. So this is a Fourier integral representation of that function. When we substitute the value of Cn into this integration, this summation. See here, this is the complex form of Fourier series into which when we extend this summation as an integration from minus infinity to infinity, and when we substitute the value of Cn as an integral from minus L to L and limit of this integral from L tends to infinity. So this integration becomes minus infinity to infinity. So summation is also integral, and this integration extending to infinite limits will get two integrals here, isn't it, in f of x, and that is called a Fourier integral representation of a function. So this is what the Fourier series integral representation. F of x is equal to 1 upon 2 pi lambda from minus infinity to infinity, u from minus infinity to infinity, f of u e raised to minus I lambda into u minus x du d lambda. So actually these two are the variables of integration, u and lambda. X is not a variable of integration. X is constant. And that is why we are getting, when we solve these two integrations, we are getting a function of x, and that is what we are having on the left hand side. So this is a Fourier integral representation of a given function. It is not necessary that function is periodic and satisfying Dirichlet conditions, is it? So this is an important formula to us to solve the examples. The complex form of exponential, complex form of Fourier series, and these formulas are not important, but we require these formulas as a prerequisite to proceed further. So we'll start with this formula. This is a Fourier series integral representation of a function. So just now we have seen in video how the Fourier series representation works actually. Fourier series representations represent actually the periodic function, isn't it? As theta goes on changing with the multiples, the amplitude of the function gets changed, isn't it? We have seen in the presentation. So with this Fourier integral representation, f of x is equal to 1 upon 2 pi from lambda from minus infinity to infinity and u from minus infinity to infinity, f of u e raised to minus I lambda u minus x du d lambda. Will be having Fourier transform, isn't it? And then later on, based on the again nature of functions, we are going to have Fourier sine transform and Fourier cosine transform, isn't it? So this is the first formula, which is again very important, Fourier integral representation of a function. Any doubt in this formula? If you have any doubt, please ask. So now, what is the definition of Fourier transform? So Fourier transform of a function, given function, or it is also called inverse Fourier integral. So whatever the representation of Fourier integral we have seen here, its inverse integral is called a Fourier transform, isn't it? Now how we define it? It is a function of lambda, isn't it? In Fourier integral representation, we are having the two variables lambda and u. So when we separate out the function of lambda, that is called a Fourier transform. That is f of lambda is from minus infinity to infinity f of u e raised to minus I lambda u du. Isn't it? And when we substitute this f of lambda into this formula, because this outer integral from minus infinity to infinity f of u, and when we split this exponential function, what we'll get? E raised to minus I lambda u and e raised to plus I lambda x. So that integration from minus infinity to infinity f of u e raised to minus I lambda u du, we have defined as a Fourier transform, right? And when we substitute this f of lambda into this, what we'll get? A Fourier integral representation in terms of transform. That is f of x is equal to 1 upon 2 pi from minus infinity to infinity f of lambda e raised to plus I lambda x du d lambda. So how that plus I lambda? Because when we split this, we'll get e raised to minus I lambda u and e raised to minus plus I lambda x, isn't it? So that inner function f of u e raised to minus I lambda u with respect to u, that integration will call it as a Fourier transform. And when we substitute, we'll get a simplified Fourier integral representation of a function from minus infinity to infinity. Here the variable is lambda, isn't it? And here the variable is u. In Fourier transform, variable is u, and in Fourier integral, the variable is lambda. Isn't it? Variable means what? With what variable we are integrating? That is a variable of integration, isn't it? So these are the main two formulas: Fourier integral representation and Fourier transform. This Fourier transform is also called inverse Fourier integral, isn't it? And this Fourier integral is also called inverse Fourier transform. So examiner may ask or may use these terminologies while asking the question in examination. So please don't get confused with Fourier transform and inverse Fourier transform. Fourier transform and inverse Fourier integral are the same thing. Inverse Fourier transform and Fourier integral representation are the same thing. All right. So with these two, when we use this Euler's formula, e raised to, as we know, e raised to minus I theta kya hota hai? Cos theta minus I psi theta. Is it? And since sine function is odd function, isn't it? Sine is odd and cosine even. Cosine function is even in the two-sided interval minus infinity to infinity. So when we use these terminologies here for these exponential functions, we'll get equivalent forms of this Fourier transform and Fourier integral. Equivalent forms. Is it? So when I substitute here in the Fourier integral representation, when I write this exponential function in terms of cos and sine, when we write this exponential function in terms of cos and sine by Euler's formula, e raised to minus I theta kya hota hai? Cos theta plus I sine theta. So what is the theta here? Theta is lambda into u minus x, right? Lambda into u minus x. So as this integral is from minus infinity to infinity, that is two-sided interval, isn't it? And in two-sided interval, if this function f of u is odd or even, accordingly the value of this integration will be having. Let me see, if f of u is odd, then its integration in two-sided interval will be 0. As we know, for the odd function, the integration of odd function in two-sided interval kya hota hai? 0. How will it be 0? Just for example, sine function is odd function. So if we integrate in two-sided interval means, for example, minus 1 to 1, minus 2 to 2, minus 3 to 3, minus infinity to plus infinity. These are called the two-sided interval. And if it is from 2 to infinity or 0 to infinity or 1 to infinity, then these are called one-sided interval, isn't it? So if the function is defined in two-sided interval and if the function is odd, then its integration is 0. And if the function is even in two-sided interval, then its integration will be 2 times from 0 to infinity. That is 2 times from one-sided interval, right? So based on these terminologies, we have defined the Fourier sine representation and Fourier's cosine representation like this. So equivalent form, these forms are called equivalent forms. So this is the first equivalent form of Fourier integral representation, that is Fourier cosine integral. Is it? F of x is equal to 1 upon 2 pi, lambda from minus infinity to infinity, u from minus infinity to infinity, f of u cos of lambda into u minus x du d lambda. Sorry, here it must be 0, lambda from 0 to infinity. Okay. And so being a cosine function, this is called a Fourier cosine integral representation, because this integration is in terms of cos only, isn't it? There is no sine or exponential function. So this is called a Fourier cosine integral representation. All right. So when we take two-sided interval, since cos is even function, and if f of u is even, then we can write this lambda from minus infinity to infinity as a 2 times from 0 to infinity. So that 2 will get cancelled here. We'll get 1 upon pi from 0 to infinity, isn't it? So this is a Fourier cosine integral representation of a function. And similarly, if the function is even, or for cos of lambda into u minus x, when we multiply by lambda inside and by expanding this with the help of cos formula, cos of a minus b क्या होता है? Cos a cos b plus sin a sin b, isn't it? So fx will be equals to integration from 0 to infinity a of lambda cos of lambda x plus b of lambda sin of lambda x d lambda. How? See here, in this formula only we are substituting this. In this f of x, when I expand this cos of lambda into u minus x using cos a minus b formula, and by multiplying f of u, and then by splitting these integrals over those two, the inner integral is called a of lambda and b of lambda, where the a of lambda is what? 1 upon pi u from minus infinity to infinity. So inner integral we are taking as a function of u, isn't it? This inner integral. So a of lambda will be 1 upon pi u from minus infinity to infinity f of u cos of lambda u du, and b of lambda will be f of u sin of lambda u du. So a of lambda is in terms of cos and b of lambda is in terms of sine. You can correlate these formulas with the help of Fourier coefficients a naught, an, and bn, isn't it? So when we substitute this a of lambda and b of lambda into this f of x, we'll get this Fourier cosine representation. Okay. When I take 1 upon pi into u from minus infinity to infinity, f of u cos of lambda u du, it will be a of lambda, isn't it? And the second integral, the f of u sin lambda u du, is called b of lambda. So these are just a simplified form. All right. So sine and cosine integrals. So case 1, when fx is even function, what can we say of b of lambda? What can we say about b of lambda? When function is even, right? F of u is even and sine is odd function. So what is the multiplication of even and odd function? The multiplication of even and odd function is odd. And integration of odd function in two-sided interval is 0, isn't it? So if the function is even, then b of lambda will be 0. That is the first case. If f of x is given even, then b of lambda is 0. And what will be a of lambda? It will be 2 times from 0 to infinity, isn't it? So a of lambda will be 2 times from 0 to infinity f of u cos of lambda u du, because f of u is even and cos is already even. So even into even function, isn't it? So therefore a of lambda will be non-zero and b of lambda will be 0 in case of f of u is even. If f of u is odd, then b of lambda will be non-zero and a of lambda will be 0, because odd into even will be odd and integration of odd into two-sided interval will be 0. So a of lambda will be 0 in case of function odd, isn't it? So that is what we are having. Therefore, by substitution of b of lambda 0 and a of lambda into this When the function is even, we substitute b of lambda 0 and a of lambda is this as a 2 times from minus infinity to infinity. What we'll get? Everything will be in terms of integral and in terms of cos. So that will be a simplified form of Fourier cosine integral representation. So therefore, in earlier pattern in 2015, this was the important point to ask the MCQ actually. Formula based questions were there. What is the Fourier cosine representation of a function? So either the option will be this or this was the option. So this is the simplified form of cosine integral representation, that is f of x is equal to 2 by pi from 0 to infinity, f of u cos of lambda u cos lambda x du d lambda. Here the variables are u and lambda. X is not variable, remember. When we solve these two integrations, we'll get a function of x, and that is what we require, f of x. So that is Fourier transform. Sorry, Fourier integral. All right. And when we denote the inner integral as a function of u, that is integral from 0 to infinity, f of u cos lambda u du, then that will we will call it as a Fourier cosine transform, that is denoted by capital F of lambda. See, Fourier cosine transform or Fourier transform is denoted by function of lambda. So to avoid the confusion, we are denoting it as a capital F of lambda, isn't it? And since it is cosine, that suffix c is there, c for cosine transform. So fc of lambda is integral from 0 to infinity f of u cos lambda u du, isn't it? That inner integral. And when we substitute the value of fc of lambda instead of inner integral into the cosine integral representation, we'll get a simplified form of cosine integral. That is f of x is equal to 2 by pi from lambda from 0 to infinity, f of lambda cos of lambda x d lambda, isn't it? That is what here we are having. F of x is equal to 2 by pi 0 to infinity. 0 to infinity means what? Lambda equal to 0 to lambda equal to infinity, because here the variable is lambda, not x, isn't it? So lambda from 0 to infinity, f of lambda cos of lambda x d lambda. This f of lambda is corresponds to Fourier cosine, so we have denoted it by fc of lambda. So don't get confused with the notation. Fc of lambda means Fourier cosine transform, always remember. Okay, so this is all about the cosine integral in its transform. That is the first case. If fx is even, then we have Fourier cosine transform and its integral, isn't it? So please ask if any doubt in the formula. Then case 2, if the function is odd, see here, if the function is odd, then we have seen that a of lambda will be 0 and b of lambda will be non-zero, that is 2 times from 0 to infinity, right? F of u sine of lambda u du. So when I substitute a of lambda and the value of a of lambda and b of lambda into the formula, a of lambda and b of lambda into this, a of lambda and b of lambda, here the a of lambda value is 0 and b of lambda will be non-zero. So when I substitute the values of a of lambda and b of lambda into this f of x, I will get Fourier sine integral representation like this here. F of x is 2 by pi from 0 to infinity, it is from u from 0 to infinity, lambda from 0 to infinity, f of u sine of lambda u sine lambda x du d lambda. You can see here the integrand is in terms of sine only. There is no cosine term, there is no exponential term. So everything is in terms of sine. So it is called as a sine integral representation of a function. Sine integral, as it is in terms of integral, it is integral representation. If it is in terms of series or summation, it is called series representation, right? Fourier series representation, Fourier integral representation. So as it is in terms of integral here, we call it as a integral representation. So f of x is 2 by pi from 0 to infinity. And when we consider this inner integral as a function of u, we denote it as a f of lambda, right? Because when we solve this integration, Here the variable is u. When we solve this right hand side integral, what we'll get? We'll get a function of lambda, because lambda is constant there, isn't it? And that function of lambda we are denoting by capital F of lambda. And as it is corresponding to sine integral, it is denoted by Fs of lambda. So that suffix s denotes the sine transform, remember, Fs of lambda. And when I substitute this Fs of lambda into its integral, what I will get? F of x is equal to 2 by pi integral from 0 to infinity Fs of lambda sine lambda x d lambda, right? So this is called a Fourier sine integral representation, or it is also called inverse Fourier sine transform. As I told you already, that inverse transform is nothing but integral, and inverse integral is nothing but transform, right? So here this integral representation is also called inverse sine transform. Here is also the same thing. This inverse integral, this integral representation is also called inverse transform, and this transform, this Fc of lambda or Fs of lambda, these are called the inverse cosine integral or inverse sine integral. So please don't get confused with inverse, okay? Because transform is nothing but inverse integral, and integral is nothing but inverse transform. So based on the nature of function, we are having the sine and cosine integral and their transforms, right? So let us recall those important formulas again. We have seen the first important formula as a Fourier integral representation, that is f of x is equal to, you can note this formula as f of x is equal to 1 upon 2 pi and lambda from minus infinity to infinity, u from minus infinity to infinity, f of u e raised to minus I lambda into u minus x du d lambda, okay? And then when we expand this exponential function, we'll get the representations, sine and cosine representations. This is Fourier transform f of lambda and Fourier integral when we substitute f of lambda into integral. So this is a simplified form. We are actually going to use these formulas, okay, while solving the example. The question will be find Fourier transform or find Fourier integral representation of a given function. So we'll start with what we have asked. If we ask to find the Fourier transform, we'll write the formula of Fourier transform only and we'll evaluate that integration. But if we ask to evaluate the Fourier integral, we'll write the Fourier integral in terms of Fourier transform, this, isn't it? So to evaluate this right hand side integral, we require the value of f of lambda, right? So in this case, we have to find f of lambda using the formula of transform, and then substitute that f of lambda into the integration, and then evaluate that integration with respect to lambda. You'll get the required Fourier integral. All right. So these are the equivalent forms of Fourier integral, that is cosine and sine based on the nature of function. We have seen f of x is even, then we'll get Fourier cosine transform, and if f of x is odd, we'll get Fourier sine transform and its integral, right? So here the two formulas are important, fc of lambda and f of x, where fc of lambda is 0 to infinity f of u cos of lambda u du, and f of x is 2 by pi integration from 0 to infinity fc of lambda cos of lambda x d lambda, when we substitute fc of lambda, right? And this is when the function is odd, we get Fourier sine transform and its integral, right? Now here in these formulas, into the integration formulas, we are having this 2 by pi term, isn't it, outside the integration. So I can manage this 2 by pi, like I can write 2 by pi as a multiplication of two square roots. Like 2 by pi, I can write it as a square root of 2 by pi into square root of 2 by pi, right? So square root into square root, it will be square root of square, isn't it? And that will, square and square root will get cancelled. I'll get 2 by pi only, isn't it? So I can write this 2 by pi term, I can manage this 2 by pi term is equal to square root or cube root multiple times, isn't it? and accordingly I'm getting the symmetric forms of this Fourier sine and Fourier or Fourier integral and Fourier transforms. Those are called symmetric forms. You can see here. So Fourier transform or the symmetric form of Fourier transform is given by this. F of lambda is 1 upon root 2 pi. Now how I'm writing this? Because if you look at the formula of Fourier transform, this is the formula of Fourier transform, right? F of lambda. When I substitute into its integration, I'll get f of lambda 1 upon 2 pi. Lambda from minus infinity to infinity, f of lambda e raised to I lambda x du d lambda, right? But now when I manage this 1 upon 2 pi, when I write 1 upon 2 pi as a root of 1 upon 2 pi into root of 1 upon 2 pi, and if I split 1 square root to f of lambda and 1 square root to the outer integral, or if I write 1 square root for inner integral and 1 square root for our outer integral, that inner integral, which is nothing but f of lambda, right? So I can write f of lambda is equal to square root of 1 upon 2 pi into this, and then in that case its integral will be f of x is equal to 1 upon square root of, is it square root of 1 upon 2 pi into lambda from minus infinity. So one and the same thing. That's why these forms are called symmetric forms. So it is a matter how you are writing the formulas, that this is the correct formula. Actually in exam we are going to use these formulas, but maybe in competitive examinations like GATE or your engineering examinations, IES, etc., the formulas may be asked as a rooted, is it? Root of 1 upon 2 pi. So you should know those formulas also. So this is the first equivalent form of Fourier transform. F of lambda is equal to 1 upon root of 2 pi or root of 1 upon 2 pi, is it? U from minus infinity to infinity, f of u e raised to minus I lambda u du, and Fourier integral is 1 upon root. So here you can see that both transform and integral, the right hand side involve 1 upon root 2 pi, because when I substitute f of lambda into this f of x, that 1 upon root 2 pi into this 1 upon root 2 pi will be what? 1 upon 2 pi only. That is nothing but the original formula, is it? So it is a matter of how we are writing the formulas. So to avoid the confusion, we are using these formulas only. Which formulas? These formulas only. But we should know the symmetric forms also, these forms. So this is the symmetric form of Fourier transform and its integral. Then similarly, we are having the symmetric forms of Fourier sine and Fourier cosine transforms and their integrals. So we are writing this 2 by pi as a root 2 by pi into root 2 by pi, and 1 root 2 by pi we are giving to the inner integral and 1 to the outer integral. So when we write inner integral as a root 2 by pi times integral from 0 to infinity f of u sine of lambda u du, that is called the Fourier sine transform or symmetric form of Fourier sine transform. There you can see here it is denoted by fs of lambda, right? Root of 2 by pi times 0 to infinity f of u sine lambda u du, right? And then when we substitute that transform into the integral, we'll get the symmetric form of integral representation. F of x is equal to root 2 by pi integral from 0 to infinity fs of lambda sine of lambda x d lambda. So this is the symmetric form of sine transform and its integral. So in similar manner, we can write this symmetric form of cosine transform and its integral, right? So fc of lambda is root of 2 by pi times 0 to infinity f of u cos of lambda u du and its integral when we substitute the fc of lambda into the f of x, right? Next is, so these are only the formulas we are having. We have discussed the Fourier transform and its integral, right? Then Fourier sine transform and its integral, and Fourier cosine transform and its integral. So these are only the 6 formulas we are having throughout the topic, isn't it? And we'll be asked either to find the Fourier transform or Fourier sine transform or Fourier cosine transform or Fourier integral, or Fourier cosine integral, or Fourier sine integral. Okay, so I'll suggest what we have asked, accordingly we'll write the formula. So this is the table of formulas. Here the type of formula, here the interval, here the transform, and its inverse transform. So inverse transform is nothing but, as I told you, inverse transform is nothing but what? Integral representation. That is the value of small fx. So always remember, Fourier transform is the value of function of lambda, f of lambda, and Fourier integral is the value of small fx. Right? Now, if the function is defined in half range, that is from 0 to infinity, then what we are doing, just like in Fourier series, what we are doing, if the function is defined in half range, we are extending that half range to full range, and extending or assuming, we can say, we are assuming that half range to full range, and we are checking the nature of function, whether it is even or odd, and accordingly we are using a half range Fourier sine series or half range Fourier cosine series, right? So the similar thing here we are using, if the function is defined in half range or half interval, we are extending that interval to full, and then according to, based on the nature of function given, f of x is given to us, so based on the nature of function, if it is even function, then we are finding the Fourier cosine transform and its integral, right? And if the function is odd, we are finding the Fourier sine transform and its integral, isn't it? So that is what we are having here, if the function is odd and even. So these are the important formulas. Actually, you might have solved the examples, or you might have seen these formulas in, I think these formulas were there in 8th or 9th standard, mod, or these inequalities, or 11th or 12th standard. You might have dealt with these inequalities and these formulas also. The definition of mod x. So this is the definition of mod x. Mod x is defined as a x in positive interval, in fact non-negative interval, and it is defined it as a minus x in again non-negative interval. So it means what? For 0 it will be 0, and if you see the graph of mod, it will be a line passing through origin in positive interval and negative interval, right? Y equal to x and y equal to minus x, intersection of these two. All right, so mod x is defined as a plus x for x is positive. You can check the definition by considering any positive values. So what it's mod, just like what is a mod of 2? It is 2 only. But if we consider a negative value minus x, if x is less than 0, isn't it? X is less than 0 means, suppose minus 2, then what is the mod of minus 2? You can write here mod of minus 2 is equal to, by definition, minus of minus 2, right? So that will be plus only. So that's how the definition works, because you might be thinking that how the mod of x will be minus x. So please don't get confused with this. If we are having the negative values, its mod will be always positive. But how it is positive? By this definition. When we are substituting mod of negative values into the mod, then minus, because for negative values, for x is less than 0, what is the definition of mod x? It is minus x. And when we substitute the actual value of x, which is suppose minus 2, then minus of minus 2 will be plus 2. So that is why mod of negative number is always positive, but this is how it will be positive. Okay, the next inequality, mod of x is less than or equal to k. What does it mean? It means all values of x lying between minus k to k. All right, this is the standard definition of this inequality. Mod of x is less than or equal to. If it is strictly less than here, then we have to write the strictly less than inequalities here also. Here, as it is equal, I can take equality here also. You can verify this inequality by considering mod of x is less than, say 1. Mod of x is less than 1 means what? If we take any value from minus 1 to 1, if we take any value from minus 1 to 1, its mod is always less than 1. You can check. Suppose if I take half, x is equal to half. First of all, is it lies in this, is that half value lies between -1 to 1? Yes. X is equal to half, 1 by 2, right? And what is the mod of 1 by 2? It is less than 1, right? If you take minus half, does it lie in this interval -1 to 1? Yes, minus half lies in this, right? So what is the mod of minus half? It is again half, which is less than 1, right? But if we take a value outside this interval, for example, -2, for x is equal to -2, it is outside this interval. So will that value satisfy this inequality? Please check. If I take x is equal to -2, so what is the mod of -2? Mod of -2 is +2. So is it less than 1? We have taken k is equal to 1. Na? So is it less than 1? No, right? So that's why for any value lying in this interval, it will satisfy this inequality. So that is what the definition of this inequality, mod of x is less than or equal to k. And what about the rest values? We are considering only the values lying between -k to k, right? -k to k, -1 to 1, right? But what about the values of -infinity to -k and k to infinity? So for that, we have defined the next inequality. What that inequality is? Mod of x is greater than or equal to k. So mod of x is greater than or equal to k means what? All the rest value from the first inequality. In the first inequality, we have considered only the values between -k to k. So in greater than or equal to, we'll be having these values and these values, right? Outside that -k to k interval. Is it? So that means mod of x is greater than or equal to k means x must be greater than this k, and it must be less than this -k also. Or if I want to write in terms of interval, x is less than -k means what? It will vary from I hope it is visible. If x is less than -k means what? X varies from -infinity to -k. So I can write in terms of interval -infinity to -k union k to infinity. We are excluding this interval, middle interval, -k to k, because that is for x is less than or equal to k, isn't it? So that is what the standard definition of this greater than inequality. So these two inequalities along with this mod of definition is very important from exam point of view. Please note. So based on this mod definition, mod of x definition, we are defining this function, exponential function. Just a minute. Okay, so based on this mod of x definition, e to the power mod x will be defined like this, because as we know, mod of x is x for positive x, right? Mod x is x for x positive, and it is -x for x negative. So how this e raised to mod of x will be? When we take x positive, so mod of x will be x, so it will be e raised to x, isn't it, for x positive, and it will be e raised to -x for x negative. You can check, isn't it? And if it is e raised to mod x, minus of mod x, then this right hand side will be reversed with the interval also. That is, in positive interval, mod x will be x, so this function will be e raised to -x, isn't it? And in negative interval, mod of x is -x, so minus minus plus, so in x less than or equal to 0, e raised to minus of mod x will be e raised to plus x. Please note these things. All right. So the sixth is, a function is said to be even function. As we know this, we have discussed this in prerequisite also. I have asked the questions on this. When the function is said to be even, if you replace throughout the function x by -x, and if it retains the original function f of x, then that is called as a even function, isn't it? For example, a polynomial function with even powers, that like fx is equal to x square x raised to 4, or x raised to even powers, isn't it? Or fx is equal to cosine function, isn't it? These are even functions. And a function is said to be odd function when we replace x by minus x, it retains the negative of the original function for all x. Then that is called odd function. The next is differentiation under integral sign rules. You might have discussed in terms of two types, isn't it? If the limits are constant and if the limits are not constant, if the limits are variable. So this is the first rule. If the limits of integration are constant, then what the DOIS rule says, differentiation under integral sign, isn't it? So if we have any integration and if we want to differentiate that integration, then that differentiation sign will go inside the integration by this DOIS rule. That is why the name is differentiation under integral sign. So just like here, if we have the integral as a function of alpha, okay, as a function of alpha, I'm not saying variable. Here the variable is x because this integration is with respect to x. So that alpha is constant there. So when we solve this integration with respect to x and when I substitute the values of a and b, I'll get the value of function or value of that integration in terms of alpha because alpha is constant. So that is why we have denoted by I of alpha. Okay, so if I of alpha is this, then if I want to differentiate this with respect to alpha, and since alpha is a single independent variable, so the derivative will be ordinary derivative, right? So that is why it is denoted by d I by d alpha, is it? So on the right hand side also we can write d by d alpha of this integration. So by this rule DOIS, that derivative differential factor d by d alpha goes inside the integration and it becomes partial because inside we are having that integrand as a function of two variables x and alpha, isn't it? So its derivative with respect to alpha will be partial, of course, isn't it? So that is why it will be dabba there when it go inside the integration, dabba by dabba alpha f of x alpha dx. Okay, and if the limits of integration are not constant or variable or the functions, actually functions of x, here you can see here we are having I of alpha is equal to a f of integration of f of x alpha dx, where the limits of this integration are a function of x, that is a of x and b of x. So here we have the second DOIS rule. It says di by d alpha is equal to integration from a of x to b of x dabba by dabba alpha, or the partial derivative with respect to alpha f of x alpha plus the upper limit, sorry, the function is at upper limit, means instead of x we substitute the upper limit, that is f of b of x and alpha, into derivative of upper limit minus this function at lower limit. At lower limit means what? Instead of variable we are substituting the lower limit, that is instead of x we are substituting a of x there, into the derivative of lower limit, isn't it? If you have any doubt in these formulas, please ask. You have solved this and you have solved the examples in M2 based on these formulas. DOIS first rule and DOIS second rule. It's just a matter of type of limits, if the limits are constant and if the limits are variable or the functions. Next is, these are some important formulas. We have used these formulas many times, these as the standard formulas. I think we have to use these formulas in first unit also. This is a standard formula, integration of e raised to ax sine bx. So that is e raised to ax upon a square plus b square a sine bx minus b cos bx. All right, and integration of e raised to ax is equal to integration of e raised to ax into cos bx dx is equal to e raised to ax upon a square plus b square a cos bx plus b sine bx. Now most of the students are confused to remember these formulas while remembering these formulas, isn't it? That is how to write this bracketed quantity. This is common to both, but most of the students are confused while writing this, whether to start with a sin bx or a cos bx. So I'll give you a trick to remember these formulas. If this integration involves sine term there, then always start with a sin bx. And if it is cos bx, then always start with a cos bx. All right, that is the first term in the bracket. That is a sin bx or a cos bx. Okay, I repeat, if this left hand side integration involves sine term, that is e raised to ax sin bx, then this bracket will start with a sin bx. And if it is if the integration involves cos term, then bracket will start with a cos bx. Okay, and then a sin bx. Okay, then b cos bx. Okay, once we have one term, we can easily write the second term. If we have a sin bx, then second term will be b cos bx. If it is a cos bx, then second term will be b sin bx. All right, now the matter of writing plus or minus there inside. So always remember, integration of sine is negative. That is why the middle sign is negative there. And integration of cos is positive. Therefore, plus sign is there. So this is how you can remember these formulas, and we can write easily. That is integration of e raised to x sin bx. So if it is sine, start with sine, and integration of sine is negative. Therefore, the negative sign is there. And integration of cos is plus. Therefore, plus sign is there. So this is also one standard formula, that integration from 0 to infinity sine ax upon x dx. If a is positive, then it is pi by 2, and if a is negative, the value of this integration is minus pi by 2. Okay. Next, formula number 10. Here, this is called a Leibniz rule of differentiation, or generalized integration by part. Generalization of integration by part is integration of uv is equal to u into integration of v minus u dash, that is derivative of u, into double integration of v, plus and so on, right? Where dashes represent the derivative, right? And the selection of u and v is by Liet or Eilert rule of integration, right? So I think it is 11, so it's time to stop. Sorry. If you have any doubt, then you can ask later. Okay, we stop here. For the project, we are going to meet again after the lecture, after the second lecture. Okay, I'll tell you the time. We'll meet group wise. Okay, I'll let you know the information regarding on the WhatsApp group. All right. Thank you.